Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm doing a review of the complete series of £1 Gospel by Rumiko Takahashi. Now, before I actually start talking about this series, I just want to point out something that I find particularly interesting about it, and that is the gap in the release date between the release of each volume in Japan. So, let me just, tell you. First volume, 1989. Second volume, 1990. Not too bad so far. Third volume, 1996. Yeah, now it's getting a bit, iffy. But this takes the cake. Final volume of £1 Gospel, 2007. A gap of 11 years for this volume to come out. I mean, for you Hunter x Hunter fans, you Berserk fans, and, fans of any series that's on hiatus, I'd say, consider yourself lucky you weren't a £1 Gospel fan from 1996 onwards, because I'd say you were absolutely ripping your hair out, waiting for the next volume. So that's just something I wanted to point out. I thought that was particularly fascinating. Anyway, £1 Gospel. What is it about? We're introduced to our lead character, Kosaku Hatanaka, and as you can tell from the boxing glove, he's a boxer. A featherweight boxer, that's a weight class. And basically he's a glutton. He absolutely loves to eat food. The problem with that, though, is that he's not capable of defeating, opponents in higher weight classes, because he builds up a large layer of fat on him and all that if he eats too much. So he becomes sluggish and weak and everything. So that's not good. So his coach is constantly trying to get him to lose weight for the matches, and prevent him from eating food. And as the story begins, he's been having a particularly unlucky streak in the matches he does. Basically, in order to actually qualify for the matches, he's had to take a lot of laxatives before the battles, and of course those drain him, and he fights pathetically and very weakly, so he's constantly losing the matches, and it's quite a disaster for him. Now, he's also going to a church to confess to a nun, Sister Angela. Now, after a while, we find out that his feelings for her go beyond, the simple kind of layman and, religious person. In fact, he loves her, and he wants to be with her. He doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that a nun can't date men or marry men, etc., etc. So that's kind of how it develops. And Sister Angela, she gets annoyed by this. She's just constantly, berating him for, trying to, put moves on her and everything. But she really wants to help him, and so she actually does try to help him, keep to his diet, and she attends his matches, just, to give him some support. So that's the beginning of £1 Gospel. Now, the way that the chapters are structured, basically, each story arc from Rumiko Takahashi is basically one chapter, but it's spread over a number of chapters, if you catch what I mean. Like, okay, sounds a bit confusing, but I'll just explain. Chapter 1, for instance, which is the first story of this manga, actually lasts for 2 chapters. You have Chapter 1, Part 1, and Chapter 1, Part 2. And, you have Chapter 2, Parts 1, 2, and 3, so that's 3 chapters making up one story arc, which is a chapter. So I know it sounds really confusing, but that's how it works. And for the first 2 volumes, I thought the stories were a bit repetitive. There wasn't really much development between Kosaku and Sister Angela, and not really much development overall. Kosaku, faces an opponent. He meets them before the match. They have their own issues. He struggles with his dieting. He somehow gets through, he fights the battle, and, he either wins or loses, and that's kind of how it goes for the first 2 volumes. So, it got a bit repetitive, certainly, by the second volume. Third volume onwards, though, we actually start to see the characters developing more properly. So, we start to see, how Sister Angela feels about Kosaku. Kosaku begins to learn about the fact that, nuns can't, date, and he starts trying to figure that out. He starts having these conflicts, and it's more engaging read, I will say, from volume 3 onwards. So, and the story itself, it is a decent story, but, it isn't anything that we haven't seen. what you're going to more like about the series is the characters. So the lead two characters, Sister Angela and Kosaku. So let's talk about Kosaku. He's a very charming man. Deeply flawed, as you can imagine, but charming in his own way. Basically, he does actually really love boxing. So even though the coach, is constantly complaining to him, why do you keep doing this to me? Do you not like boxing? And the fact that you keep eating food all the time and, making yourself worn out before the battle and everything. But he genuinely does have a passion for his sport. So, that lends him a great deal of charm. Not only that, but there's some very great comic timings. Like, there's some scenes throughout this manga where, he's doing that thing where he jogs, like boxers do down a path. And, he's running along and characters might be looking at him and talking about his passion and all that. And then he suddenly swerves into a ramen shop and just, starts eating ramen and all that. It's quite funny. I think Rumiko Takahashi is very good at comic timing, so I really liked those little moments. Sister Angela herself, Sister Angela, she takes a while to get used to. I'd say by Volume 3, Volume 4, I had started to appreciate her as a character. We started getting more of her viewpoint, as I said before, and that allowed us to be able to relate to her more. Whereas the first 2 volumes, it was basically her, complaining at Kosaku, going, you mustn't eat, I can't be with you, you should be a bit more mature, etc., etc. So, I found from Volume 3 onwards her to be a much more engaging character, and charming character, and I guess relatable character. But for the first 2 volumes, yeah, she's a bit underdeveloped, considering she's the romantic interest, and she appears on every single cover of the manga. So, it does take a while to get used to her. We have a variety of other characters, none of which really get the same development that Kosaku and Angela get. There's Coach. Coach is he's always getting into arguments with Kosaku. You gotta eat less. You gotta stay over the night so I can keep an eye on you. And he's absolutely stressed out of his mind the whole time. Because he saw Kosaku fight that first battle, and he saw the potential in Kosaku, and he really wants Kosaku to be able to win. But, because of Kosaku's habit, Kosaku's been doing really badly, so, the coach is really stressed out about that. But he genuinely does care for Kosaku, so, that's nice about Coach. And besides that, we get a couple of other recurring characters, but none too important. So, main characters would be Kosaku, Angela, and Coach. Those are the 3 main characters. So about the artwork. So, the artwork in One Pound Gospel is very much Rumiko Takahashi. The character designs are very similar to Ranma Half. Even though this is a seinen, whereas Ranma is a shonen, there isn't really much of an artistic change between them. I guess one aspect is that maybe the facial expressions are more realistic in One Pound Gospel than in Ranma Half. They're much more exaggerated, much more cartoony. But overall, there isn't a major change in art style from Ranma Half to One Pound Gospel. Nothing wrong with that, though. Rumiko Takahashi has a very lovely art style. And also, I really love her panel work. So, if I might show you an example from the first volume, there's lots of nice little detail, there's charming character designs, etc., etc. And it's a very nice panel arrangement. I really like her panel arrangement. Now, as you can imagine from a series that went on hiatus so much, the artwork does change over time. Now, volumes 1 to 2, the artwork is pretty much the same, no problem there. Volume 3, the artwork is very similar-ish. It's a little cleaner looking, and the characters seem a bit more rounded, a little bit better drawn. But there isn't a significant change in art style, so, Volume 3 is pretty much similar. Of course, the most significant change in art style is Volume 4, as you can imagine, after 11 years. In fact, Kosaku himself actually looks quite different, something you can see on the cover. So, for example, from Volume 1, you can see that has that very Ranma Half look to him. But Volume 4, he actually starts really looking like, Inuyasha or Rene or whatever. So, there is a bit of an art shift, over time. but nothing too dramatic. You know, the artwork holds up very well throughout the whole series. So it is a very nice looking series. I like the artwork and the panel arrangement. Now, Viz's treatment of this series. Okay, so basically these are actually thicker volumes than the normal tankobon. So whereas the normal tankobon is 180 pages, the first volume is about 230 pages, the second volume about 220, and the last two volumes are about maybe 210 or something. So they are actually a nice little fat book, so I like that. But something that really niggles at me, and it's just, this is more of a personal preference really than anything else, but that is, this is a seinen manga, yet it's the exact same size as any standard tankobon, in terms of trim size. So, basically, when I buy Viz, seinen, it's always from Viz Signature, and they've got that bigger size, which looks really nice. It really allows the artwork to pop, etc., etc., and it looks very nice on my shelf. And now I have these right beside, my Viz Senens, my Viz Signatures on my shelf. Because of the difference in size, it looks quite jarring. Now, I believe Viz Signature wasn't set up around the time of this release, so of course it's going to look quite different. But I do find that kind of annoying, just I guess as an OCD kind of thing, So anyway. That's my review of One Pound Gospel. Overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything particularly exceptional, but it's a very charming little series, that, was a bit slow at the beginning, a bit repetitive, but over time started to, actually start properly developing, Sister Angela. Kosaku develops pretty decently from the beginning to end, and Coach kind of just stays the same, but remains, the charming old man, who has his best eyes out for Kosaku. And, it's a nice looking series, and, Viz have, given it to us in this nice little fatter tankobons that are still in print, I just want to point out. So yeah, overall, if you're a Rumiko Takahashi fan, I don't really see any reason why you shouldn't get this series. It's only 4 volumes long. It's a seinen from Rumiko Takahashi, so it's a little different from some of her other works. And it's just, it's a good manga overall. I would recommend it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.